Rebuilding the nations, ever challenging but refreshing.
Hello viewers, welcome to Rebuilding the Nations Talk Time, the program that helps to rebuild the nations with God's truths through the restoration of the church. My name is Vanessa Tete, and with me is John Kpikpi, pastor of City of God Church, Accra. Today, we're continuing our discussion on the subject work. Join us for another wonderful discussion. You're welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Vanessa.
How actually should we carry out our work?
I think that having accepted the premise that actually it's God who originated work and also modeled it for us, it will be only fitting and logical for us to tend to his word and find out how he wants work to be done. So I'd like to go there, and in particular to Ephesians chapter 6 from verse 5. And I'm going to read a short passage to act as a basis for us answering the question, how should we work? This is what it says. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but like slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not men, because you know that the Lord will reward everyone for whatever good he does, whether he is slave or free. So there are some important elements here. The word slave used here, which we could apply to all employees today, and then masters, we could apply to all employers today, will sort of jar on most of us modern ears hearing this and think, what, am I a slave at work? Oh no, I'm a free person. I've also got my rights, human rights. I've got all my rights. So I can't be, this couldn't be referring to me. So sometimes it's been translated in some of the Bibles to sound nicer. But I think that we will lose something of what God is trying to communicate if we jettison the word slave completely. Because although slavery was rife, and there were many negative things about it in those days, part of it will have some lessons to teach us in this whole area of working for somebody else. To begin with, I think the idea here is that once you enter into somebody's employ, if you from 9 to 5, you actually for him. All your time, all your energy, all your resources are no longer yours. They are for him.
Yes.
Which means that you can't do as you like at work, but rather you've got to find out what your employer wants you to do. And that raises a lot of issues because most people don't actually agree with their employers, and they would like to do their own thing. Even at work, when they are employed and being paid by the employer, they still want to do their own things there. Well, the idea here from the scriptures is that when you enter somebody's employ, at least during the time that he's paying you, you should have, let me put it, should I use the word slave mentality? You should understand that that time is not yours,
Yes.
but it belongs to the person. He's paying for it. Most workers are not aware of it. They just think they should be paid, but they also want to do what they like at work. So what this means is that you've got to take your time and learn the ways of your employer. Find out what he really likes. Find out what thrills him. Find out what really gets him upset. And then you avoid doing those things that upset him and major on things that really, really thrill him. So because he's got your time, because he owns you, let me put it that way, for the period that he's paying you, you've got to be devoted to him and to the word. That's what the scripture is saying. So it says, obey them. That's another word that most people will find, oh, that's an old-fashioned word. Why should I obey my boss at work? No, I'm meant to be somebody who thinks for himself and does things for himself. Why should I obey? But the scripture says, obey your masters. And the point here is that the relationship is predicated on the fact that he has got an idea of what should happen and he's gone around to look for you to fit in and do that. So we really have to take hold of this. A workman, whatever level, managers, assistants, teachers, doctors, they got to find out what their employer wants and then seek to obey them. Do what he says. That is simply what he's saying here.
So what if we don't do what our employer wants, what our employer says we should do?
Well, if we don't do that, we are disobeying our employer.
What kind of consequences should we face?
Well, I think that in most workplaces there has to be a query for you, either written or verbal, letting you know that you have not done what you've been told. And that query should be taken seriously, because in every organization there are ways of handling these things. If you did that second, third, fourth time, depending on the company, you could be asked to leave. And that will be in place because the employer has a particular way in which he wants things to be done. And if you don't fit into that, then you are actually not advancing the vision and the purposes of that company. And the other thing is, do it promptly. I've always said that delayed obedience is disobedience. And it is very, very true in the area of work. When you ask to do something, the employer knows what time this bit is going to be linked up with that bit, and the next part is going to link with this bit before the whole product or whatever you're doing can work. So if you don't put yours in, the whole chain breaks down and he cannot deliver. It might end to the loss of a huge contract. It might lead to end to a loss to competitors. So often workmen don't understand that. They think it's just their bit and they don't care whether it happens or not. But your bit is linked from the employer's point of view to 5 or 10 others, and he has to bring them all together. So not only obey him, but to obey him promptly. That's why it says, you shouldn't obey them only when their eyes are on you, but like slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. So basically it's saying you've got to really train yourself or have the attitude. When the employer speaks, you want to go for it like this, very briskly, and then let me add, with joy.
With joy.
I think that's the best part of it, to obey your employers promptly and with joy. It will be such an exciting difference in our workplaces. You will stand out like this, and I can assure you, you will move very quickly in that company. The boss will just so like what you are doing. You make great progress there, because that is an essential part of working. And I think God is trying to get something through to us here, because when we go on evangelism, for example, as Christians, we never frown our faces. That's working for the Lord. We really doing it we enjoy it. We want to do it with joy. When we have to pray for people, we're not really upset with them and angry with them. When we are trying to do Sunday school in our churches, it's with joy and happiness. But strangely, when we get to work, the faces that we present when customers come into our environment is terrible. Not a smile. Almost as if they don't want you to come in here. They would rather have you away than being next to them. So with joy is an important part, which that can come from knowing that we are actually serving the Lord. In serving people, our customers, and attending to customers' needs, that is our way of serving the Lord. And he says we should do it like that. So very, very good counsel from here. And then he also says we should serve wholeheartedly.
What does that mean? Well,
I think with every ounce of energy in us, we throw it into the work. The opposite is half-heartedness. And that's written about most of our working life in this nation. Well, get in late. Before break, you just leave. Give yourself as much break as possible. Wander about. Not think and plan what you're going to do for the day. After all, just waiting for your salary is government work. After all, it's not your father's cocoa farm. All this kind of talk. What it does in the end is we're working with half heart, or I was saving a quarter heart. A quarter heartedness, if there's anything like that. And so we don't throw ourselves into it. And if somebody is not throwing himself into the work, it's obvious immediately to the employer.
Because the output would be also half or a quarter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The output will be poor, the environment will be awful. So again, God sees the workplace, the work environment as his territory, as his work. So when you're serving your employer, he says, no. Your employer only happens to be a visible representation of the invisible God to you. So he is there bringing some order, bringing some arrangement, bringing some plans so that things will happen. But God is saying, actually, he's my rep there. When you work for him, you're working for me. This is hard for people to appreciate, particularly if they work, say, in the fire service, or they work in the police service, or they work for a factory where they are producing shirts or shoes. People don't realize that this applies across the board. That is why we need to understand God sees it like that. It's all sacred to him. And so he says here, serve wholeheartedly, as if you were serving the Lord, not men. That is Ephesians 6 verse 7.
What happens if somebody's in the workplace and they're doing their job and they feel they know better than the boss?
That is one of the most common mistakes we have, but it's all over the place. Yes, I think workmen on the job, it's something like this. They have skills for handling specialized equipment. They have skills for attending to particular areas of the job, equipment, machines, machinery, and various things. And in fact, they've been hired for those very skills. But the harnessing of that employee's skills goes with other employees in the company. The harnessing of all those skills to achieve a common purpose is the manager or the boss's job. And he has a broad view of the company or of the place that individual employees can never have. It's just true. And so when individual employees see the company from their viewpoint, it's okay, they can see it from their viewpoint, from their perspective, and insist on certain things. It should be with humility, because they should make a contribution. By all means, they should say, what about this? What about this? But they ought to defer to the boss, who is hearing not only from you, but 10 other employees.
Oh, yes.
Or 20 or 50 or 10 other managers. It has to synthesize all that. And then, of course, he himself has his idea how it should work out. So I think the problem has always been that employees will have a partial picture, very, very partial picture of the whole place.
What should we do, John, if we're working in a place and we find out that some of our fellow employees are doing things they should not be doing to the detriment of the company?
Well, can you give me some examples so I can respond to it properly?
Yes. So, for instance, they're taking company material, taking them home, company paper.
You mean they're stealing things from the company?
Yes, because they're not asking for permission.
Yeah.
Sometimes taking money,
yes.
Company money,
Yeah.
doing personal things with them, or taking the company car and doing their personal rounds in town with the company car. Also, what if there are people in the company who have set up a company within the company,
yes,
and they are
very common now.
Yes, and they're stealing company clients, servicing them with company resources,
yes,
but not giving the money to the company.
Yes.
So they're operating their own business within the company. What would you say if a Christian is working in an environment like that? What should they do? Should they leave?
I think that these things are so common now that most people don't even know that they're wrong. They are wrong, and you're raising it now is such an important phase in our discussion, Vanessa. And I believe that a Christian who works in that kind of context, first of all, he or she should not participate in any wrongdoing at work.
Not at all.
He shouldn't. He or she should not do that. That is sin, and he mustn't take part in it. But then the Christian should do a bit more than that. When he sees anything like that, he has to warn those who are doing them and tell them this is wrong. We should be able to stand up for Christ. The workplace, we've just said, is for the Lord. It's for Christ. is for God. It says serve as if you're serving Christ. You have to, first of all, warn them. And if they don't desist for that, you must report them to the management. Because if you see it and you don't report it, you can be reasonably included as a participant in the evil that is going on. So we must stand up for what is right and take the risk of reporting any wrongdoing that we see at work.
But you made a point that these things have become acceptable.
Yes.
So to those who are doing the wrong thing, they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
They think they're doing what's acceptable. So are they not going to victimize whoever reports or whoever confronts them about it?
Yes, I think we live in an age where, as Isaiah cried out many years ago, you call good evil and evil good. So the workplace has become like that. All the evil things that you've mentioned people are doing, they will consider it as good means of feathering their own nest. So if you open your mouth and say no, you will be considered a bad person.
Yes.
And the other thing in our culture, which I've observed, is that people in general dislike very strongly those who raise the alarm about wrongdoing. I always give this example when it's a lady in a shop and she's stealing money from the shop, not accounting properly. If somebody reports to her boss and then she's now found out, well, that worker and probably her whole family will be very upset with the person who reported her to the boss. All their anger will be directed at this person who reported her.
Yes.
Their anger will not be directed at the sin or the evil that has been committed. So we have got things wrong way round in our thinking and in our culture at the moment when it comes to that. People will argue that you've just stopped this person from earning his income, you have spoiled his job, you are the person who is now making him no longer give money to his family and all that. But what is wrong is wrong. If he's stealing from the employer, chances are that whole company is going to go down. So you've got to, because it belongs to Christ, because you are called to do what is right as a Christian, you've got to raise the alarm wherever you are. And obviously risking all the venom that will be unleashed upon you as by your fellow workers or other people whom who have reported. But we must not keep quiet about things like that. We must raise the alarm.
We must.
We must. If we can't raise it publicly, we should write. We should write a note and leave it somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're called to testify, we should be able to do. We should then do it. But to just keep quiet over wrongdoing, I think that's probably why most of our companies, particularly government organizations, that's why they are going down. That's why they cannot deliver what they've been set up for. But if just one or two or three people begin to say, "Whoa, this is not right. This is not right," we will begin to move forward.
It would actually change the economy, wouldn't it?
It will, completely. Work should be a building place where we add on to the capital that the person has put in.
Yes.
Our job and skills should come and add on and add on and add on. I had a vision one time, actually, maybe I should share it at this point. I saw a group of people sitting on a large leather skin. And then what I saw next was they were cutting off this piece of leather skin, roasting it and eating it. Cutting it, roasting it and eating it. As they continue with that, after a while, there was nothing for them to sit on. So they all fell to the ground.
Oh.
So I felt God was showing me that in our work environment, that's what we're doing. When you are employed, if you are sitting on that skin, you are meant to add to the skin so that it gets wider and wider. Other people can be brought in to sit on this skin and also enjoy something of the good things of the company. But when we get the job, we cut the company and eat it. And another person cuts it and eat it. Another person cuts in the middle and eats it. The result is the company shrivels and disappears. And then we say we are now unemployed.
Yes.
But we have every opportunity to build well if we bring these attitudes, knowing that it's for the Lord, knowing that we are there to serve people, knowing that we are working for our bosses with all our heart, The right attitudes will actually build and build and build and increase the capacity of the company to even take more people.
But there's some contrary arguments to that. There are
Yeah.
those who say, well, I have to eat from my workplace.
Yes.
There are those who say, well, you cannot tie a goat to a tree and not expect it to eat the grass around the tree. What do
Yes.
we do? How can we
Yeah,
break down those
we have these
arguments?
sayings, Vanessa, that express the cultural, the traditional understanding of work, which we must challenge. For example, they say your work is your farm. Well, it is not. It is a place that you go to serve and build up, but you have an agreed contract with the employer, and he's agreed to pay you a certain amount of money, which you actually accept before taking the job.
Yes.
So that is your income. That is what is due you. It is not your farm. In fact, it is the employer's farm.
Yes.
You see, it is his
Yes.
farm, but it's not your farm. So you should be satisfied with what you have been given. If it is not enough, you can ask for more. You can negotiate and discuss things. But we must not carry this attitude that it's our farm, so we begin to take things like everything from the place, like you just go into your farm and get everything out. That's destructive. And also the idea of tying a goat to a tree without letting it eat the grass around here. Well, you're not a goat, actually. You are you're not a goat, and you've not been tied, and so you are a man or a woman made in God's image. Look to God, bring some creativity to the place, work hard. The company will see that with joy. The manager will see that. He will add on to your pay. But it also tells us that there is it says, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not men, because you know that the Lord will reward everyone for whatever good he does. Which means that not only is God expecting us to work well at work, wholeheartedly, obey our masters because it's his area, he's also taking responsibility for paying you. He has a reward for you, for your work that you are doing for your boss. This is an interesting thing, because most people have this idea, and I can understand that the only thing they get from their work is what the employer gives them. Well, that is from God, but God promises that he will also reward you. So we must expect God, and he's always faithful, to give us even way beyond what the employer is able to give us. One way you can do it is just keep diseases away from us. You can go on for months and months and months. We wouldn't buy any medicines or drugs. That is a real reward from the Lord.
That's
if you're doing
true.
well.
That's true.
If you think of how much you could spend in the hospitals, you could do that. One thing you could do is provide opportunity for you to be sent somewhere else to be trained on a training course, or to travel this place or that place. There are many ways in which God rewards you that go beyond your income.
What, if any, is the responsibility of the employers towards their employees?
Ephesians 6 verse 9, and masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. Masters or employers have a very, very important responsibility to their staff. And they should, first of all, think about their welfare, think about their needs, and keep thinking about it, how to improve their conditions, how to help them work better, how to encourage them do their work. It should be, what we are seeing here is, the Lord is looking for a relationship between the employer and the employees that is good and healthy. They should be friends trying to work together. He should be interested in their future, in their welfare. And so if masters have that mindset, then they will be able to actually care for their employees so that they can also care for the needs of the people or the customers that come to them. Now, it also says here, the masters must not threaten them. So the work environment is not meant to be a harsh place. We often do get a lot done when we are harsh and very, very sharp and very harsh and all that. We sometimes do achieve a lot, but actually that is not God's way. He wants us to try and use another way of achieving high productivity rather than using the whip or the cane. Now, I would say that when it comes to masters and their servants, the big issue is often remuneration. The employees always want more money, and the master always has not got that much money to give. That's always the case, I can tell you. I think that somewhere the impasse needs to be broken, where employees need to be able to travel a little bit out of their employee mode and seek to understand a little bit more about the master's condition.
Yes.
That he's not just sitting on bulk, lots and lots of money that he's not willing to give. And the employer also needs to travel out of his employer mindset and step into the employee's role to some extent. So I would say that if the master really wants to serve, or again, the master is willing to serve the employees as is required, it will require what I think some risks or some faith moves. And I know what I'm talking about. If we fix salaries, for example, based entirely on what we can see, we will never increase it. We'll never increase the pay of our employees.
City of God Church is part of New Frontiers, a worldwide family of churches on a mission together to make disciples, raise up leaders, plant churches, and transform our nations. We meet every Sunday at 10 a.m. in Ashaley Botwe, Accra. Come, let's worship Jesus together. God bless you and see you soon.
No one who came back, I know.